If you're overweight, do you often find yourself looking in the mirror and frankly just blaming yourself? Why did I eat those donuts? Why am I addicted to chocolate? Why do I have to have so many crisps, chips, cake? Why do I do this to myself? I'm such an idiot. Is this what you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself off when you see yourself in the mirror, or when you see the scales spin round and round when you dare to step on? I don't think that's good. I think it's just going to lead to a misery spiral. I think it's very demotivating. But I also think it's wrong. I think it's inaccurate to blame yourself. And that's what this video is about today. It's not your fault you're fat. 10 years ago, when I was working on a local BBC radio station, I was doing the mid-morning show. It's a nice little show, and we'd have lots of guests on, contributors, and every so often we got the opportunity to have quite a big name on the show. And one such day was the day we were offered Katie Hopkins for a nice 10-minute chat. Now, for those of you who are not British, you might not know who Katie Hopkins is or was. Back then, she was sort of like the panto baddie of mainstream media. She was the person you got on to rile up your audience, to annoy people, because she is very forthright. She's very disagreeable and relishes in being that disagreeable person. It's more than just her sort of on-screen persona. It really is what she's like. She's exceedingly forthright. And that rubs a lot of people up, but she doesn't mind, she doesn't care. In fact, I think she thinks it's useful to be that person. A lot of people really like her as well. It's fair to say Katie Hopkins is not universally hated. She is very, very popular amongst some people. We have an expression in Britain about such personalities. We say they're Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. Anyway, since then, Katie Hopkins has been, well, not just cancelled, she's been super cancelled. She cannot step foot inside a studio or an editor's office. None of them want to have anything to do with her. What made her so bookable and so interesting 10 years ago has kind of tipped her media presence over the cliff edge, and nobody will book her. I understand her mirror is no longer shining her reflection back at her either. She's that cancelled. But anyway, 10 years ago, she was quite a name to land on a little show like mine, and me and my producer were quite pleased to have on the show. Now, we were interviewing her because at that time she was promoting I guess it'd be a reality TV show. She might describe it as a documentary. And it was a show called My Fat Story. You may have seen it. It was a 2-part show. And the whole idea of the programme was that in the first episode, she put on an enormous amount of weight. And then in the second episode, she would lose that weight through exercise and sensible eating. And the whole premise is to show that actually weight gain is your fault. You did it to yourself. And weight loss is doable, and if you don't lose your own weight, you've only got yourself to blame. And this is Katie Hopkins' sort of view on life. She takes personal responsibility to a level that many people can't accept, and she's quite rude of it as well at the same time. Just as an interesting aside, for her My Fat Story reality show, she put on 3 stone in 3 months, eating 6,000 calories a day, which is really dangerous. I mean, she's not a big lady, and really she should have been looking at around a maximum of about 2,000 calories a day for somebody her size, maybe even less than that. So she trebled the amount of calories that she should have been consuming for a 3-month period. Do you remember Morgan Spurlock's the late Morgan Spurlock now? He died quite recently. Nothing to do with this documentary, but he did a documentary years ago called Supersize Me. And the idea of that documentary was to expose the fast food industry. And he picked on McDonald's, and the whole idea of his documentary was that for, I think, a month solid, every single meal that he would consume would be a McDonald's meal. And the only rule of the documentary, I guess, the challenge, the only rule that he set himself was that if they offered, as they often did, to supersize his meal, he had to answer in the affirmative. he had to say yes, and very often they did offer to supersize his meal, hence the name of the documentary, Supersize Me. He ate a prodigious amount of very unhealthy calories during that month, and he put on a lot of weight. Now, when he went to lose his weight after the documentary, I am sort of spoiling things for you, but it's a very old documentary, so forgive me. I distinctly remember that he could never get his weight exactly down to where it was before he started this experiment. So putting weight on just for the fun of it is really not a path I'd recommend to prove a point or to land a role in a film. Any of these reasons, that I don't think they're good enough. It is a form of abuse, and you are risking serious damage to your body and your health. Anyway, notwithstanding, we had Katie Hopkins on the show to talk about this documentary. And we talked about all the usual things. Excuse me. We talked about all the usual things. You know, what was it like? Who joined you on the thing? You know, was it easy? Was it difficult? And then, now, bearing in mind, I had no sort of skin in the game back then. This was 10 years ago. I hadn't developed any of my ideas on the easy way to lose weight and stay thin, this psychological approach that I've been presenting to you on this YouTube channel. Back then, I had no fixed position. I had no viewpoint, particularly about weight loss, weight gain, and the weight loss industry. But I did know enough to challenge her on this topic. And I challenged her in this way, very, very BBC way, where BBC is supposed to be neutral, all the presenters are supposed to be neutral. And one way to sort of emphasize that neutrality is to step away from any opinion, but still challenge somebody with an opinion that someone else might offer. So I said the very BBC line. I said, Katie, what do you say to those people who would argue that actually the reason we're so fat and obese is because we live in a dangerous environment? This is an environment where we're drowning in a sea of, frankly, nearly free calories produced out of factories at a great rate. There's just a dangerous environment. What do you say to them? And she said, this is very Katie Hopkins. She laughed. She went, ha! Typical Guardian reading BBC flunky. Ha! Which is funny. And my producer punched the sky because we got the soundbite we wanted. We wanted classic Katie Hopkins, and there we got it. She's been nasty. She played the man, not the ball. She likes to do that. And of course I had to laugh because she did it with such aplomb. And I was at pains after the interview to point out to my listener that I do read The Guardian, but I also read all the other newspapers every day because that was my job, to find out what the rest of the media was saying about any particular topic. But anyway, that sort of personal slight us to one side. Here we are, 10 years on, and although I didn't really know the topic very well back then, I know that she was wrong and I am right, and this is what this video is about. Okay, I'm sure you have you ever been tucking into something that you know is bad for you, but is absolutely delicious, and asked yourself this question: why is it that all the bad foods taste so nice? You must have asked that question. It seems to make no sense. If these foods are bad for us, why has evolution made us so that we love these foods that are so bad for us? I know I get that feeling every time I have a scone with clotted cream and jam. I love clotted cream. Nobody in the world, and I've travelled to quite a few countries, as far as I can tell, nobody in the world, not even the French, do cream as well as they do in Devon. Devon cream, I challenge anybody to find a nicer cream. It's so thick and creamy. It's clotted. It's got the word clotted in the title. Clotted cream. It actually predicts what's going to happen to your heart if you eat too much of it. That's how delicious it is. It's so creamy, it's so calorific, it's so fat infused, it's gorgeous. And of course, scones are lovely, and a dollop of jam on top as well. Lovely. Now, I do realise for any British viewers that probably, if anything is going to get commented on in this video, it's going to be that I put jam on top of my cream on a scone. Anybody from outside Britain, you might not be aware, that is the hottest topic you could accidentally kick off in this country, whether the jam goes underneath or whether the jam goes on top. Well, I'm afraid anybody who puts the jam underneath, you're wrong, and you could not be more wrong. And by the way, it's scone, it's not scone, so you're wrong. Okay, anyway, so, and every time I eat one of these scones, jam on top, I do find myself asking, why is all the bad food so delicious? Donuts, chips, crisps, chocolate, why is it all so delicious? If it's so bad for you, why has evolution done this to us? It makes no sense. Well, that's half right. Evolution has done that to us. We don't like the food in spite of evolution. It is because of evolution that we like all this food that's so bad for us. So how do we make sense of that? Well, basically the 4 ingredients you really enjoy, the bad ingredients, are salt, sugar, other carbs, because sugar is a carb, and fat. And how those 4 are blended makes the food more or less delicious to us. But in essence, it's those 4 ingredients that we really crave. And we could split those into 2 groups. There's salt and then the other 3, the carbs, the sugar and the fat. I'll do salt quickly. It's not really what I want to talk about, but just to sort of explain that one. All animals need salt to function, and salt is rare in the natural world. When a group of animals find a rock seam that is high in salts, quite a lot of animals will visit that seam and give it a good lick to get the extra salt in them. Animals love salty food, and we're no different. So that's where our craving for salt comes from. Of course, now in the 21st century, we can make salt as easy as anything, and we eat way too much of it, and it's a poison at the levels that we're eating it. So that's salt. But the other 3, fat, carbs and sugar in particular, quite rare in nature, perhaps not as rare as salt, but rare enough for us to go craving them, as sort of cavemen, hunter-gatherers. But not only are they fairly rare, they're very useful in what was a very physically hazardous environment. The thing about those foods, the fat, the carbs and the sugar, is they're very energy dense. So for a little bit of chomping, you get an awful lot of energy that's easily released into your body. I don't know if you've heard of volumetric dieting. It's this idea that you eat food that's low in energy density, so a lot of leafy food, vegetables that have not got many starches in them, lots of water, soup, broths, things like that, whole grains, food that it's got lots of nutrients but not much sort of energy. There's not too many calories in there, and the idea is that you get satisfied, you get full before you've had too many calories. It's one approach to weight loss that works for some people. It wouldn't work for me, but it's not a diet I would readily criticize. So that's volumetric dieting. Well, the foods we like, the donuts and the crisps, etc., they're the opposite of that. They are packed with readily available energy. And the reason we love it is back in caveman times, we needed that burst of energy for when we needed to chase something, or more importantly, perhaps run away from something. If you're busy knocking around your local patch, hunting and gathering, and then a saber-toothed tiger should appear, you need that energy to run away from it quickly. Now, you're not going to outrun a tiger. All you need to do, though, is to be able to outrun your fellow tribesmen, or one of them at least. A case of, he's got Gerald. I'm glad he's got Gerald. I'm going to miss him, but I'm glad he's got Gerald. You have to outrun other human beings. Now, that gives an advantage to those cavemen, those cave women who particularly craved sugary, fatty, carby food, because they would have been more driven to eat that food. And on occasion, the humans who have eaten that food will have had just that extra burst of energy to stay a pace ahead of the guy who's perhaps a bit not bothered about sugary, carby, fatty food. And he ends up as lion food instead. And obviously his genes don't end up propagating through subsequent generations, but your genes do. And you are the human being who likes fatty, sugary, carby food. In other words, tiger sprint food. You're good at running away from tigers because of that. Of course, fast forward to the 21st century, far fewer tigers sort of roaming the streets, but more and more tiger sprint food is available for us to eat. And that is the modern problem. We're driven to find this tiger sprint food, and This is because your brain has evolved, just like all other organs, just like a duck's webbed foot is evolved to help the duck swim. A giraffe's neck is evolved to help him get to the juicy leaves at the top of the tree, and an elephant's trunk is evolved to, I'm not quite sure why, to blow out the wax from his ears probably, I'm not sure. Evolution's done this to our brain. It has made our brain go seek out tiger sprint food, the carby, sugary, fatty food. And the problem is, here in the 21st century, we're still operating like that. In fact, we're running on what you might call an outdated operating system. If you think of the human brain like a computer, our operating system would be hunter-gatherer 1.0. It's out of date. It's no longer suitable. What we really need is a new operating system, perhaps sedentary consumer 1.0, because we're very sedentary and we consume a lot. Another operating system would do us better. But we can't do that because you can't rewrite software for human beings. Or can you? Maybe you can. Look, you're fat. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And whilst I haven't written a whole operating system for the human brain, I wouldn't know what that would be or what that would look like. And it's most likely very, very much not possible. What I have written is a line of code, what programmers would call a patch, to update the software, to update the operating system. And that patch, I've actually measured it, as far as I can work out, is 13 bytes of memory. So it's tiny. It's a tiny patch of code. I talked about it in video 1, not in these terms. And the patch of code is I, space, don't, space, snack. It's that line of code. It reprograms your thinking about food. Instead of thinking about carbs and sugar and fat and salt, what you now think of is it dinner time? And because of this, it changes your whole attitude to grabbing this tiger sprint food, this unhealthy food that tastes so delicious. I'm not saying you don't eat that food. When I have lunch, I have chocolate and crisps sometimes. I'll have something that's yummy and scrummy. But because I am separating my hunger pangs, my peckishness from the actual job of thinking about food, I think about time instead. It makes the whole job of eating less food and maybe eating less bad food, carby, sugary, fatty, salty food, makes that job easier. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but what I would urge you to do is, if you're carrying a bit of extra timber, if you're looking in the mirror, if you're hating yourself, if you're blaming yourself, first of all, stop blaming yourself. You do live in a dangerous environment. Katie Hopkins is wrong about that. It's not your fault, but she's right about this. It is your responsibility. If that is you, go check out my first 3 videos on this YouTube channel. I don't need you to like and subscribe. I don't even need you to comment below this video, as gratifying as those things would be. What I need you to do, and I urge you to do, is go watch those first 3 videos. In total, it's less than an hour. I think it could be the best spent hour of your life. What's to lose? Go check it out. Obviously, the first video is up there, so click on it now. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.